Welcome to another Fortify Your Faith. This episode is on spiritual reading. I'm going to talk about what is spiritual reading, the importance of it, and then kind of give some examples of works that are kind of along that vein. So spiritual reading is different than study. Study is more, you're learning kind of the truths, you're trying to understand how things fit together, or more the mind, the intellect is involved in this sense. That's really the kind of understanding the truth of the Lord's kind of what he's revealed, understanding what he's revealed more fully. Spiritual reading is kind of reading, many times it's writing of the saints about the spiritual life, growth in prayer, or even the life of the saints that kind of inspire. They move more of the will. Just deepening my desire. Not that study can't do that, but this is more directly of, I want to go deeper with the Lord. And I want to learn the terrain of, okay, what things should I be looked out? What advice do the saints have, spiritual writers have of when difficulties arise, or when I'm struggling in this area or that in my spiritual and moral life. So it's helpful. It's very important there, just helping to keep fueling that desire if I want to keep continuing going deeper with the Lord. I recommend doing it even just picking X number of prayers of a book, pages of a book, or a length of time. Even it's like, I'm going to read, 4 pages a day. Or some of the books I'll show here are very short chapters, which make them very apropos for kind of easy chewing bites of spiritual reading. Something that you don't have to, like, I got to get through 20 pages or something and then to the next chapter. Some of these are like 3-4 pages at most. But the idea of feeling that desire and things that as I'm reading, I'm not speed reading through this. It's not so much so I can get all the content as quickly as possible. It's more I'm just going through it at a good normal pace, kind of normal reading pace, not really slow. I'm not like stopping and trying to analyze everything deeply. But I'm aware of when something draws me, I'm like, I take notice and maybe even consider, maybe tomorrow, maybe I want to bring that section of what I read. I want to bring that to prayer tomorrow and ask the Lord, what's here? Why did that draw me? And even later on, kind of down the road kind of later on, this kind of the passage from a book you read, especially spiritual reading, can kind of evoke like there's something, I remember reading that in there, and it really, I don't know why is the right, Lord, maybe I should look at that. And you're like, yeah, I think this is maybe what the Lord wants me to bring. There's something here. So it can be very helpful of not just kind of feeling the desire, but also provide content of what to bring to prayer at times. So, okay, that's, I just encourage it. It does, it's just kind of as study is very good for the mind, and kind of learning the truths of the faith and kind of just loving the faith, deepening the appreciation of the truth of that, of the faith. Spiritual reading is much more of kind of fueling the desire to want to go deeper in prayer and one's communion, spiritual life with the Lord. So here are the books that I have, recommendations of maybe place to start if you're wondering where to start. The first 3 here are, one's late medieval, and then the other ones are more early modern. So Imitation of Christ, Thomas à Kempis, recommend it, very short chapters. The next one, Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. I have a link below to a forum.org discussion. It's kind of a part of there's a couple parts to it actually, but it gives a good introduction if you're wondering, like, if you start this, you're like, well, there's a lot here. They're relatively short chapters, but there's a lot. It kind of expects a lot. I would recommend watching the video below, a link and such, if you're kind of considering Francis de Sales, just so you're not totally surprised. They give a good overview. Saint Alphonsus the Glory wrote this work, The Practice of the Presence of the Love of God. It goes through 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, and meditates on kind of the virtues connected with each of those phrases. And so it's wonderful. This one in St. Francis de Sales, where there are a couple things that you got to kind of tweak them for the amount of time, kind of for our day and age in terms of how long mental prayer is. St. Francis de Sales, he kind of says an hour. Whoa, okay. Maybe like 20 minutes or something for, in our day and age. Like he's expecting kind of a certain nobility, living in nobility, so you have a lot of leisure and such. But they also both of them make mention of communion, and it wasn't as frequent for the laity to receive communion until the early 20th century. So that's in here. So, but other than that, they're solid classics. The next two are from the early mid-20th century, first part of the 20th century. First one is The Soul of the Apostle by Chattard. And this is really you could say, kind of a classic one on the importance of mental prayer. Mental prayer, if you're looking like, why is mental prayer important? This book is really meant to fuel that. This is why it's so important. That time with the Lord. And in the back, there's even kind of some sections of it goes through all these kind of different elements and such of one's spiritual life, of prayer, mental prayer and life, and then kind of has some kind of quick pointers in the back sections, kind of recap. So really recommend it, especially like, what's all this mental prayer? Why is it important? It makes the case, and it's it's become a classic. The next one I have here is Archbishop Louis Martinez. He was the Archbishop of Mexico City in the 30s and 40s, and this is this is an abridged version of a longer book, but it kind of the longer, but this is really the core, the best part of that book. It's called Worshiping a Hidden God. Is the Sophia Press kind of republished the best part of a section of the book, and Unlocking the Secrets of the Interior Life. Really, it goes after the kind of the difficulties in mental prayer, and kind of the importance of persevering. And God's ways are not our ways. We need to attune ourselves to Him, and He uses a lot of great analogies. And so, really, to kind of through difficulties, desolation, He really shows there's a reason for it. And I think it offer good clarity to kind of some of the struggles in prayers. Good overview, kind of, okay, I'm having difficulty here, but God is at work. The next three here are just more contemporary. Thomas Merton, maybe 50 years ago or so, wrote this one, almost 60 years ago. Seeds of Contemplation. You can see it's longer. There's the chapters. Chapters are a little longer, but there are kind of block sections even within the chapters. As many of these are relatively. The chapters, even if they do have they aren't that long, they aren't terribly long, but they can even be broken down. But a lot of just things to chew on, reflect on, and a lot of different subjects, and that's one priest told me this is one of the best works, and I really enjoy it every time I went back to it and over it again. The next one is Father Thomas Dubé, Deeper Conversion, Deeper Prayer. This one is maybe not your typical spiritual reading. It's more of the idea of kind of that overview desire, like I need to flame my desire, and what are the different elements in that. And so he wrote this one about 15 years ago, mid-2000s. And there's also an audiobook on forum.org. I have it linked below if you want to listen to the audiobook of it instead. But really the importance of just remaining motivated, in this importance of God wants to transform us. And deeper prayer and conversion go hand in hand. on this ongoing conversion. And then the last one I have here is Father Jacques Philippe. He's a French priest. He has a number of books. This is Interior Freedom. Of the ones I've read of his, I think this is really his best work. But you can see it's very short. The chapters aren't that long, and even they're kind of broken up into subsections within them. So these are kind of my recommendations, and the idea of, I've went through, kind of read through these just slowly a number of times each, and it's not like, well, I need to keep getting new books. It's like I have a core set of books spiritual books that I go to, and every so often new one gets added. But the idea of it's good, if, things that are rich, you can keep going back to them again and again. One of these, I know, it's like every year I'm going back to it at least, and for about a month or something, I'm kind of just working through it. And so that's my recommendations of spiritual reading. It's really to fuel that desire to keep going, and kind of also provide kind of some content for prayer in the spiritual life. And why not get the wisdom of the masters, and they can really inflame our desire, because the more we have that desire to grow in holiness, the easier it is to then want to kind of invest the time in it.